Greetings everyone, it's Seven from London, coming back with another video. I hope everybody's doing well out there, despite the madness. I want to say a big thank you to everybody, as usual, for sharing my videos, for your comments. If there are new comments, I will definitely get to them. I want to say a big shout out to a few people. To Anastasia Grape for making your video. Well done for getting a video made. Thank you for shouting me out as well. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I watched it and I really loved actually that your children were in the video and that it was upside down. It reminded me of a movie. There's a movie called Upside Down, and it's like the world seen upside down. I think it's a really interesting movie conceptually, because as I've explained to people, I'm a concepts innovator, so I'm obsessed with concepts and new concepts, and that's kind of why I got targeted, partially why I got targeted, because they want to steal new ideas, these big corporations, because they're parasites and they don't have any ideas of their own, so they target people like me to fund their false flag terror and to fund their evil, you know, their trafficking and what have you. And so, yeah, for the last 15 years I've had to deal with that because of the fact that I'm really interested in concepts. But my focus has been and is of solutions. That's why I have the Solutionary Media Network. My whole focus right now is how do we end the madness? How do we free ourselves from these beasts? You know, so that's gonna be my focus on this channel, as much as sharing with you information that you need to know, because a lot of the stuff that's happened to me has played out in the public eye, even though most people are not aware of me. They're aware of some of the events that were around my case, but they just don't know anything about my case or me. And so I will share that as well. But I think it's equally as important that we turn our attention to what we're going to do about it. So another shout out I want to do to Danny Jones for finding that brilliant video. Danny, thank you so much. You know, and my brother, who inspired me to create the multimedia platform that was stolen by Helen Alexander, the she-devil. I call her a she-devil. She's an evil woman, and she's faked her own death. I've spoken about that before, but I'll go into more detail about all of these people in the coming days, weeks and months ahead. Just to give you a background, because you need to understand who these people are. They are the deep state. She is the head of the deep state. Deep state, that's right. She's the head of it. She's the head of the beast. She has an enormous amount of power with Rupert Murdoch and runs the media. She runs all kinds of things from the intelligence agencies across the world. It's not just in the UK, but the UK is the belly of the beast. So I want to bring that information to you as well. So thank you, Danny, for that. Also to Jesper Burke for doing that video. I haven't watched it. It just came up in my timeline. I was like, what's that? You know, Warrior Queen 7. I was like, wow, thank you. That's like amazing. You know, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You know, it sort of made me think about a few things, because you know, we have this so-called truth community and truth movement, but quite a lot of it, you'll find that a lot of the people are not, you know, they're hired hands. A lot of people, you know, you'd think that people would want to know the truth about 7/7 bombings, Charlie Hebdo, Grenfell Tower, and all these major atrocities, you know, major crimes against humanity. You'd think that they want to hear about it, and you know, sometimes you go to these big channels and they're not interested. They don't want to hear, you know. So it's up to us smaller people out there to bring the information to the public. So whenever anybody shares my videos, I'm really, really grateful, because, you know, you're helping to get the word out there and let people know what's really going on. So I got another shout out to Joanne Lomax from CCN and all the crew in CCN. They invited me to do an interview, which hopefully will come out in the next couple of days. And Joanne has she does a show called Reclaiming Perception, and she's really lovely, you know, and we did an interview last night, and hopefully you'll get to hear that. But I'm really grateful for them to put me on the channel and help get the information out to everybody, because it's information, as I said, that everybody needs to know. You know, I know a lot of people are afraid, I know a lot of people are disgusted, and a lot of people are confused even, because obviously they've been running a narrative which shows that Muslims are perpetrating all these false flag terror operations, but they're all studio-based, staged false flag operations. They're all TV productions. You know, they're made to look like we have a terror problem in the UK, but it's all totally bogus, absolutely staged, bogus bullshit. You know, everybody that's involved in it at this stage is all hired hands, either crisis actors, and they're just people on the payroll who are prepared to put their lives on the line to keep some bogus narrative going. And it's wrong. It's wrong. And that's why I really feel like we need to transition from being a truther community to a love community. You know, I'm going to repeat that again. We have to transition from being a truth community to a love community. You know, a love movement. Because that's what's going to change things. You know, sometimes people say they're talking the truth, but they embed the truth with lies. So they give you a bit of truth, and then the rest of it they embed with lies. Whereas love is a frequency that cannot be denied. You know, when you come from a position of the heart, and you come from your heart, and you genuinely care about people and what's happening to everybody out there, whether it be other people who are targeted, you know, victims, children, it doesn't matter. We have to start caring about each other. We have to change the value structure. And we have to start reconfigurating how we perceive power. Because this whole idea of the externalization of power is what has got us into this mess. You know, we have to start to internalize power. So instead of looking at a man's credentials, or the fact that somebody's wearing a white coat, or somebody has a title next to their name, and give that person power automatically, we have to change that. We have to internalize power and reclaim our own power as sovereign people. You know, because this whole concept of being a citizen basically means you're a slave. That's the literal term of what a citizen is. A citizen is a subject. A subject is a slave. And none of us are slaves of anybody. And we have to make that message loud and clear. We're not anybody's slaves. We are sovereign people, and we have the right to live just like everybody else, to live with peace and safety, protection. You know, we don't buy this bullshit anymore, and we're not tolerating it anymore, and that's where we have to get to. And that's what my contribution is. You know, I realize that there's so much horror out there that some of us don't even know what love looks like anymore. You know, they have such a warped perception of love. You know, they've totally taken over and turned it, everything that we find beautiful, from music to the arts, all of it is embedded with all this satanic evil shit. You know, I'm sorry to use that word, but it's the truth. You know, most of the arts have been co-opted with these satanic symbolism, and it's just it's evil. And, you know, we have to come to the point where we're going to sort of transmute that and upgrade as a society, as a humanity, to, you know, bringing back the principles of love into the world. You know, and that's my preoccupation. I spend all day thinking about how can I contribute, how can I change this. You know, as somebody that's into concepts, I think all day about, you know, new ways to bring this madness to a close. And I think part of what we have to do is we have to become love. We have to operate from the heart. And when people are not operating from the heart, you know, if there's no love in the message that people are bringing out, then, you know, we have to stop listening. We have to start boycotting channels which are not dealing with love. You know, truth is essential, but truth without love, what's the point? What's the point? There's all these people that have all these channels and they've got all these followers, and still the madness goes on. Still there are no solutions, you know. And that's why I've set up this channel as the Solutionary Media Network. So what my focus is going to be is to use some of the practical tools that I've learned along my 15-year journey and share them with you all so that you can become empowered in your own right. As much as sharing knowledge and information about events that have happened so that you know the truth and that you can report it, and more people like Anastasia can open channels so that they can get the truth out to their networks. We need to transition into focus on solutions. So today what I want to do is talk about how you can issue claims against and take court proceedings against individuals who are targeting you, corporations, and anybody basically. Obviously, issuing claims deals with more of the civil side of it, but the reality is, if somebody harms you, if somebody targets you, if any of these institutions come after you, when you go to a lawyer in the UK, most lawyers only have licenses to defend. So in other words, if you go to prosecute somebody or take legal action against somebody, they've rigged the system up in such a way, and you can go and find this out. Just go to your local lawyers on any high street and ask them, what is your license for? Is it to prosecute or defend? And all of their licenses are to defend. So basically, if you perpetrate a crime, they will defend you. But if somebody perpetrates a crime, or if somebody accuses you of a crime, they will be able to defend you. But if somebody commits a crime against you and you want to take action against them, most lawyers in the UK do not have a license for that. Not only that, the system is rigged up so that we have to go to the police, the Met Police, or whatever town and city you're in the UK. The system is rigged up that when something happens to us, we have to call the police so that they take action on our behalf. But the reality is these police, they don't take action for us. They don't have our defense. They don't have our best interests at heart. As I've explained before, I've got 75 police reports and nothing has been done. So this is going to cut out, so I'm going to re-record in a second. Okay, so as I was saying, basically I've got 75 police reports, probably more than that now, for over the last 15 years, for crimes against me. If you look at the murder plot against me, that was a real crime, and nobody's been to see me about it. All the way through, all the harrowing things that I've been through, there's been no police protection, no police investigations. My crime file has been corrupted. My police crime file has been corrupted. They remove the evidence and they replace it with absolute bullshit. So there is no police that is going to protect us. So it's up to us to empower one another and look out for one another in the best way that we can. So I felt it necessary. You know, I was just thinking, I had an interview yesterday and I was talking about the fact that there is nowhere when people have, excuse me, when victims of crime in the UK go to the police, we get a rude awakening and we realize that there is no police that is going to protect us. We have to protect ourselves. And, you know, I had to use the court system myself. I had to learn the hard way that I went from lawyer to lawyer to lawyer, even though I had so much evidence. I had contracts signed by these people. I had so much evidence against each and every one of the people from my lawyers, which were Russell's. You know, he signed a contract to keep my documents private and represent me as his client, but instead he set me up to be defrauded and murdered. You know, and in fact, there's a case with him and J.K. Rowling, because he did the same thing to her. That J.K. Rowling is the author of Harry Potter, and she had an alias name that she was using to write books and things. But that same lawyer, Christopher Gossage, if you type it in, case with J.K. Rowling, you're going to see that it's his name that comes up. So he's been doing that to people. But because she's a famous person in the public eye, they got behind her. Whereas with me, because of so many factors, the fact that I looked younger than my age, the fact that I'm a black female, the fact that, you know, they considered me somebody that they could abuse and get away with it and cover up their tracks. You know, there's been no press reports on it. Even when I won my case, there was no press reports on it, despite the fact that my work is some of the most famous TV shows and innovations in the world, you know. So that tells you, the fact that the media will not report on my case tells you there's a massive cover-up. You know, how can a woman win against 10 corporations and there's not a word mentioned of it? And these people are notorious. They're notorious for stealing from people, you know. So it got me thinking, you know. Also, I received an email from somebody called Robert today about Brian Harvey and saying about, you know, would I help him to represent himself in court? Well, you know, I think it's a bit late in the day, as I explained to him. And I think Brian has got it down. He knows everything about his case, and he is the best person to represent his own case. And back in the day, as a sovereign, you would represent yourself. You wouldn't get somebody to represent you. You'd represent yourself in court. It was only the people that couldn't read and write, who were considered illiterate, that had representation back in the olden days. But now, obviously, it's big business for lawyers to take over people's cases, corrupt people's cases, block people's cases, make sure that their cases never see the light of day. That's what's going on right now. If you've got a case of valid evidence, they'll put an operation around you to shut you up so that you never get paid and that your case doesn't see the light of day. Now, I learned that from hard experience. And so this is why I feel it necessary to share with you some of my top tips for how to bring a claim against a corrupt institution. You know, but the first port of call is that you have to remember, if you try to use the current system, which is null and void, 9 times out of 10, there are some times where people do get successes in the courts, you know, but then even when you get successes, you get sabotaged so that you can't claim your money, you know, so that these people can cream off your estate and you not see anything from it. So, even though I'm giving you this information, because I think the more people that use the system themselves, and the more they see us using the system, and we know the loopholes and all the little scams that are going on, the more chances of its successes that we're going to have. Because I really believe that not all judges are corrupt. I've had some very good judges. I've had some foul judges, but I've had some very good judges that were impressed at the time, and the competence, and the way that I presented my cases in terms of the paperwork, etc. And you'll hear that in my courtroom audios. So I will not say that all judges are corrupt, because that simply is not the case, although I would say probably majority of them are. That's the reality. But we want to change it, and we have to change it. We have to create a system that is fair for everybody, where everybody can get justice, and that you don't have to pay to get justice. You don't have to go to some corrupt lawyer or whatever. We want to get through all of that. Sorry, I'm really, really hot at the moment. I've got a fan here, but it's so noisy, and I'm not sure if I put it on, it might just, you might not be able to hear me anymore. So I'm going to try and kick this, and hopefully you'll get the information and you'll be able to use it to your own benefit. Share it with other people. It's important that you share it with other people so that they become empowered, and we all become empowered. We all look out for each other. That's what we want to do. So bear with me. I'm going to come back at you in a second. Okay. So the first thing to remember when you're doing a court case in the UK is that they don't really deal with the law, they deal with statutes. And so there's a big difference between common law, which is the law of the land, and it should be the case, but it isn't. They deal with statutes, codes and acts. So for instance, we have the Human Rights Act, and we have articles under the Human Rights Act, like a right to a fair trial is under Article 6, for instance. And just throw out some acts. You got Article 8, which is the right to to live in privacy and protection of your property, etc. And I'm going to go through all of these acts eventually, but I'm just giving you an example of what an act is. It's actually an article, so you've got various different acts. So most cases can be framed in one aspect of the Human Rights Act. So it's usually quite relevant to cite the Human Rights Act, but it depends obviously on what type of case that you're going to bring. And the other thing, so you have laws and you have statutes, but you also have what is called CPR, Civil Procedural Rules. And so basically that is the Bible for the court system, CPR, Civil Procedural Rules. That's the technical side of how the courts work. For instance, Rule 1 of CPR, Civil Procedural Rules, is that the courts have a duty to put justice first, so not to get caught up in technicalities. If a case has merit, then the person bringing the claim or the case has a right to be heard in the court. So in other words, if you've got evidence, you've got witnesses, and you can prove what has happened to you, under CPR Rule 1, you have the right, and you can challenge the court, because it's not really about the judges. The judges are representing the courts. So you have to know to represent that you're dealing with the courts. Everybody's dealing with the courts. So when you cite CPR Rule 1, it puts everybody in the position of, okay, these are the rules for the way that the courts are supposed to be run. And so they have rules for everything from, for instance, I think CPR 1B would be equal footing. So for instance, if you sue a big corporation, or like I did, I sued 10 corporations and individuals. If you sue a lot of people at the same time, naturally there's an unequal footing. So basically the courts have to create the situation to make it fair for you as a litigant in person. I think in America they call that pro se, but in the UK it's litigant in person. So effectively you're representing yourself to the courts. So the judge has to make sure that there's an equal footing for all parties involved. So obviously that's something that is dealt with in case management and stuff like that. So the key things that you have to understand is civil procedural rules. So there are civil procedural rules of how you issue your claim. Now I'm going to show you some of the forms. I'm not going to make this a very long video. I'm just going to give you some quick notes so that anybody who wants to bring a claim can actually do so. So I'm going to show you now what you would need to issue. Say for instance you've got somebody abusing you, you're targeted, and you know who's targeting you, because that's the first thing. You've got to know who the perpetrator is. Now we know that the targeting program is state run as well, but it helps if you know the actual parties. Like in my case, I got targeted pretty much straight away because they wanted to steal my intellectual property, they wanted to steal my money, and they wanted to kill me. So I got targeted from the get-go. As soon as I left the meeting and Helen Alexander stole my documents, she rushed, you know, big deals in 126 countries with my work. And to make sure that I didn't have any right of to challenge her, she put the whole operation around me, her and all the rest of the people, from my lawyers, Christopher Gossage, Tony English, Richard Hanna, James Manson, you know, and you will see all of these names are part of the Murdoch Empire. You know, they all play a role within the Murdoch Empire. Some of them are lawyers, but what they do, they have the function of corrupting the courts, corrupting the laws to protect them when they do their crimes against humanity. So all of them have different functions. So you've got some of them that are manning the intelligence unit. You've got some of them that are manning the media and putting out the spin and all the propaganda and all the lies about who perpetrated what, when it was really them that engineered and orchestrated everything. So it's a whole operation, and everybody in that network, in that, it's a crime syndicate, an organized crime syndicate, and everybody in that crime syndicate has a different function. So some of them run the tapping, and they've expanded their operations since targeting me to build GCHQ, and that obviously runs the hacking and the surveillance, illegal surveillance side of things. And obviously, because they're international, they control the NSA in America. So basically, what you have is a network of people that we define as the deep state, or Illuminati, New World Order, Bilderbergs, whatever. Basically, criminals in high places who are Satanists have people in every position, and each position has a function. So each person controls a different aspect. So they have people controlling the courts, making sure that cases get corrupted, you know, making sure that you don't get anywhere wherever you go. So that's the terrain that you've got to navigate within. But, you know, the other thing that we have is we have divine forces on our side. You know, that's the other thing that we have to bring to the table. So I'm going to start showing you some of these documents so that if you want to bring a claim tomorrow, next week, you can do so. Okay, what you're looking at on the screen is the form that you need in order. So it says Form N1, make a claim against a person or an organization. Use N1 to make a claim against a person or organization to settle a dispute. So you can look at notes for that, and there are sites such as this one, which basically deals with the forms and the rules of setting out how the forms are supposed to be filled in, but it's very, very simple. I'll give you a look at what the actual claim form looks like. So this is what the claim form looks like. So you would say for instance, you were going to issue a claim in the Royal Courts of Justice in the Strand, London. You'd have to decide where that claim is supposed to go. So if your claim was under the value of £1 million and it was a few £100 or a few thousands of pounds, then you would put it, if it was in the lower regions, thousands, then you would issue it in the county court. If it was a claim that was above £1 million, then you would issue it in the Chancery Division, which deals with bigger claims. You can also issue it in the High Courts. So you would put the name of the court that you're going to go to. So if you're going to go to the High Court, you'd put in the High Courts of Justice. Then when you issue it, they're going to give you a claim reference number. And that will go, actually that will go here. Then they'll give you a date when your claim was issued. Okay. So what you would do, you'd put your name in here, claimant's name, and the addresses including the postcode. So you put your name. So my name is Charles 7. I just use 7, but when I deal with the courts, I have to include Charles 7. And then I put my address and the person or people that you're suing, their names and addresses, I should say, including the postcode. Now here you give the brief details of your claim. So you would categorize it, but like using bullet points. 1, I'm issuing a claim for damage to my property under various section of the law, which will say what law that is, under the Thefts Act or whatever the law may be. You could cite the Human Rights Act, trespass, or you could say the Act itself is 1998, and you would put, say for instance it was the Housing Act, so you'd put the Housing Act 1988 or whatever. If it was like I'm suing my landlords who have been complicit in my targeting, in the targeting of me at my property, rendering me to be able to, not to be able to stay in my own flat and stay in my own home. I've had to stay in other people's places, sleep on sofas or sleep in other people's beds and stuff, because you know, I'm not safe staying in my property. So I'm suing them currently in court, as I've mentioned before. So you would think about what your issue is. So in my case, it's harassment, it's trespass, it's stalking, it's break-ins. So all of these issues have a law assigned to them and what should be done, what the offence is and what the remedy for that offence is. And so what you would do is you'd put in, under the Housing Act, I'm claiming for damages for trespass, stalking, you know, etc., etc. You get the drift. If you don't understand, then please leave me a comment and I'll try to make it a bit simpler. And then basically what you do then is you put the value of the claim. So I'm claiming for the value of £2 million or 200,000 or £2,000 or whatever. And they say here that you must indicate your preferred county court hearing centre, and basically you put the court that you want to go to. But I found when I put the court that I wanted to have my case heard in, it was not acknowledged. So I don't know how relevant that is. It obviously depends who you are. If you have legal backup, like a legal team backing you up, that's the advantage in this day and age of having a legal team is that the courts will deal with you a little bit better when they know that you've got a legal team behind you. They'll be a bit more careful about how they play the game. But if they think you're a litigant in person, they can hide your evidence, they can change dates of things to suit the party, especially if you're dealing with a corporation or institution or a government organization. These things happen all of the time. So then you put the people's names and addresses and postcode who you're suing, and you put the amount of the claim. So the same figure that you put in here, the value of the claim there, and then you put in the amount being claimed, and you also put in the court fees. If you're going to pay the court fees, they do have a fee remission system, so that if you're on a low income, you can get a fee remission. And if you have legal representatives that you have to pay, you put the costs that you have to pay them there, and then the total amount. So that's the claim form. So it's no different than going to the bank and filling in an application to open a bank account, or any of the things that we have to do. Everything involves a form of some sort. So this is no different from filling in those forms. Okay, so once you've done all that, you will seal it. There should be 2 pages actually. That's the first page. This is page 2. So the claim number, the courts give you the claim number. So here we see, sorry about that start, I don't know what that's doing there. It says, does or will your claim include issues under the Human Rights Act 1998? Obviously you're going to click yes. For most of us that are targeted, it will include issues under the Human Rights Act. And you would cite what those are a bit later on. So then you have the particulars of claim. You can attach it straight away, or you can bring it below. So particulars of claim is what you are claiming for particularly. So let's say my car was damaged, or my flat was damaged on the second, oops, connection lost. So let's say on a certain date and time, on the 2nd of August 2018, somebody broke your door or whatever, and if you know the person who's done this, you will name the person's name, the offence, and the damage that was done, and also how much you've had to pay and how much you're claiming for. So that's kind of the idea of particulars of claim. I have one on my top here. I'm going to show it to you. I'll have to come out of here because otherwise you won't see it. So that's a particulars of claim form. And so they have got practice directions so that you can actually look at the description of a particulars of claim. And as I said, you can also go on to the civil procedural rules, because every step of the way there's a rule to how you're supposed to do things. Because most of these corrupt corporations, they're especially when they know they're guilty, they're going to rely on technicalities in order to get your case thrown out. So the better you understand technicalities, the more chance that they're not going to get away with it. Okay, so it's important to understand civil procedural rules, CPR, rule number 1. It is the duty of the court to administer justice and not just throw cases out that have merit because of a technicality, which is what they will always do. Okay, so once you've filled out this claim form and you've done the other side, you have to sign what is called a statement of truth, which is basically known as a prayer in law. And it says, I believe, put your name, I, Charles, know and believe that the facts stated in this particulars of claim are true, and I'm duly authorized. Or if you've got a lawyer, they would sign this one. I'm duly authorized by the claimant to sign this statement. So whoever's bringing the claim on your behalf, or if you're bringing it on your own, you would sign this. You'd put your name. If it's a legal firm, they put their name, and then you sign it, and they put the position that they hold. If you're doing it yourself, those things are not relevant. And you put in here your address where you want to be served with any court documents, because once you've issued a claim, the courts will correspond with you and let you know how your claim is processing. So they'll usually correspond with you by letter, hard copy, but they can also correspond with you by email if you inform them for whatever reason you might be not getting your letters. So you can tell them of an email that you want your information to go to. So that's the claim form. Now, once you've issued that claim, what is going to happen is that if the court sends it, they're going to give you, if they send it to the defendant or defendants in plural, they're going to give you what is called, come back to this page, they're going to give you a respondent's pack. They're going to send them your claim, and you're going to need 3 copies of the claim. So you're going to need a copy for yourself, a copy for the courts, and a copy for the person who you're suing. So they're going to send you, in response to this claim, the court is going to automatically send it, and then they're going to send you a certificate of service, which is basically a certificate to say that they've issued your claim to that party, and they've given them 28 days in order to respond to the claim. Now, they'll tell you when the parties that you're suing have to respond by. They've got a deadline whereby they respond, which the court tell them to respond. If they don't respond to your claim within that time, the courts will say that you can issue judgment by default. So basically, if somebody doesn't respond to your claim within the designated time given by the courts, you can go back to the courts, and they should give you, stamp your document, and you should fill in what is called judgment by default. Now, that comes under CPR 12. And there are practice directions for how you do that. But that comes under CPR 12, which is judgment by default. So what that means is that nobody's responded to you, they haven't acknowledged it, they haven't defended it. First they have to acknowledge it. Then they get a little bit more time to be able to defend it. Now, if they don't do either, if they don't acknowledge it and they don't defend it, you have the right to put in a default judgment. However, what happens if it's a big corporation, if they haven't responded it because they're not taking you seriously and they just think, who's this little fool coming trying to sue me, big me, you know what I mean? Often when they realize that you've put in a judgment by default, what they'll do is they'll try to get it backdated to make it look that they have acknowledged and they have filled in a defense. So that's another type of corruption that goes on within the courts. So, okay, so I'm going to take you to the next step. I don't want to keep this video long, I just want to give you the basics. And as time goes on, we can go to more advanced levels. Okay, so just to give you an example, I'm going to cover my details. Just to give you an example, this is what a filled-in claim should look like. So it should have all your information, who you're suing. I can't actually discuss this case because it's in court. So be careful when you know you're going to bring a claim against someone not to put all your onions out there beforehand and while you're in court, because because that could jeopardize your situation. So you want to hold as much back as possible. Sometimes it's necessary to share things because if your life is in danger and you need to share so that you get the public or the court of public opinion on your side, that's important. But while you're actually in court, then you have to keep your cards to your chest. Okay, so once you've issued your claim form, as I showed you, this is the sealed one. You can see the court seal on my one, which was from last year. Then the next thing, you're going to get a certificate of service back from the court to say that the party has been served, and then the court will give them a response pack. So they basically have to fill it in, and they'll give you a certificate so that if they don't, if the party that you're suing doesn't respond, you can apply for judgment by default under CPR Rule 12. Okay. So the next thing that you're going to do is that you're going to have particulars of your claim. Now, if it's a small thing, you can fill it out on the form. But this is what one that I've done looks like. That was additional to my claim. And pay attention to the format as well. So you'd have your name. You'd have your name. You'd have the party you're suing. You'd have the date. And then you'd have the court that you're in. Then you'd have particulars of claim, and then you have your information at the bottom. Okay? Then the next thing you need to do is that you'd have to have a statement of truth. So again, it's the same format, and that's very important. You don't write it out like a letter. You actually have this format. Yeah, so you have your name at the top. You know, I don't use capital letters for my name because I'm a sovereign. So they're a corporation, so I use capital letters for them. And so that's a statement of truth, whereby you put your statement of truth. Now, there's a difference between a statement of truth and an affidavit. Now, I want to show you what an affidavit form looks like, because that's quite important. The difference between an affidavit and a statement of truth is that an affidavit is sworn under oath. So under the penalty of perjury, it is sworn, whereby you hold a religious book, whether it be the Bible or the Quran. You swear, you have to hold your hand on the Bible and swear that you're telling the truth, and you put your facts out on the affidavit under the penalty of perjury. Now, I would say to anybody bringing the claim, because you know that most of these corrupt corporations, they're going to call you a liar, they're going to call you a nutter, they're going to call you everything under the sun. So what I would suggest is that you not only you do a statement of truth, but you also do an affidavit, and invite them to do an affidavit under the penalty of perjury. If I'm lying and I'm prepared to swear under oath, under the penalty of perjury, if you haven't done it, you swear an affidavit to prove that you are innocent. Now, most of these corrupt people, they know the penalty. If you swear an affidavit and you swear your innocence under the penalty of perjury, you could go to prison. Okay, that's the advantage. When you do a claim, always try to get them to do an affidavit. I'm going to show you what an affidavit looks like. Okay, so what you're looking at is a sworn affidavit, the actual form, general form of affidavit. So basically, you would have it sworn by your name, and that will be the date. No, that will be the person who's in the court who's swearing it on your behalf. And you can see examples of these things if you go onto the Farrell report, FARRELL, report.net, sorry, F-A-R, so F-A-R-R-E-L-L, report.net, the Farrell report. When you click on it, you go to the link that says appendices. Then you'll see some of my own court documents from the case where I sued the 10 corporations. And you'll see what a sworn affidavit looks like when it's completed. You'll also see examples of witnesses' statements and my own statements and skeleton arguments and all the things that you need, all the components you need to put together your own case. You can use some of those documents as templates so that you can see the covers. But some of these forms already exist. You just print them out online. So this is an example of one. So you'd put your name there, you'd put the person who you're suing there, you put, I think that's the person in the court. So basically you would set out in numbered paragraphs, that's very important, with both your sworn affidavit or a witness statement. It should always be in numbered paragraphs. And the reason for that is when you give your duplicate to the court, to the judge will have a copy, the person you're suing, if they come to court, will have a copy, and you'll have a copy. And you can say in paragraph 2 where it says blah, 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 and they can cross-examine you on that. Or you can refer the judge to see certain evidence within certain paragraphs. And you can highlight. It just makes it easier for everybody to follow what you're saying, basically, because it's your case. So you're the one bringing the case. So you need people to be able to follow it. You need the judge to be able to follow it, and you need to be able to follow it yourself. So this again will show the court that you're in, and it will have your claim number. So obviously an affidavit would be sworn after you've already issued your claim. You can do it at the same time, but obviously you need your claim number. So you need to issue it first so that they can give you a claim reference number. And then you set out in numbered paragraphs exactly what your situation is, why you're suing, what the offence is, how much you're claiming, the reason why you're claiming it, etc., etc. So you'd set out all the facts, all the crimes, all the offences that have been done to you, and you're swearing that what you're saying happened to you is the case, and you're putting it to an affidavit, you're swearing it under the oath, and you're prepared to go to prison if you're lying, because obviously you're not going to swear an affidavit if you're lying. I wouldn't advise that you do that. If you know you're not telling the truth, don't touch this, okay? That's why when you're dealing with liars, this is the best document to give them. Let them see that you're serious. You've messed with me. Now I'm coming for you. I'm swearing this. You swear it too. You swear it. If I'm saying what I'm saying is a load of nonsense, you swear one of these as well. Let's not waste the court's time here. Swear one of these under the penalty of perjury. Let's go. That's how you need to deal with these people, okay? I'm interested in empowering people. I'm sick of the fact that so many people are being abused. You type in targeted individuals, you'll see case after case after case of people being abused and getting accustomed to that lifestyle. Like there is nothing you can do about it. There is something you can do about it, you know, and we're going to talk about how we navigate through the corruption as well, because that's very relevant. So it's got to be sworn by an officer of the court, obviously, and it will say it was sworn at, which court it was sworn at, it will show the date, and it will say who it was before. Okay? So I recommend that you print out these forms and fill in your affidavit that way. You can actually do it by hand, but I think when you do it this way, you give them less cause to argue with you that you didn't do it correctly and blah, 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 which they'll try to use everything to mess you up, to get rid of your case. So, you know, the more you can use their forms, the better. There are websites online where you can fill this out, like I showed you with the the PDF for the actual, where is it, the claim form. Let's go back to the claim form. Okay, so the claim form is here. We'll just go back to it for a minute. But this is PDF filler, so you get the claim form and you fill it out online, and it keeps it nice and tidy. You know, obviously you can do these things by hand if you've got beautiful handwriting, etc. And your handwriting is very clear and concise. If your handwriting is not clear, then it's better to fill it out online. It looks more professional, and it's better for the courts to be able to, you know, get what you're saying. Okay, so now we're going to go back to, I want to show you the additional things that you need. So just bear with me. Okay, so next to your statement of truth, and I showed you what a statement of truth looks like. Basically, you have the opponent, and you'll have your initials here, and next to it, sorry, I'm on the wrong side. So you have your initials here. So I've got CS1, and it says first. What that means is that this is my first statement. So if you do another statement, you do CS2, second, CS3, third. So basically, if the case goes on for a long time, you might do a number of statements. So you have to make sure that you put that it's your what statement it is, and you put your name there. Okay, so next to your statement of truth, you're going to have your exhibits, and this is what an exhibits page looks like. So the exhibits, so obviously it says High Court. Well, my case started in the High Court, then it got transferred without my knowledge to the county court, so then I had to change all the documents over. But you see the format. Wherever court you're in, you put it at the top. Whatever court you're in, you put it at the top. So I'm looking at it the opposite way around. So, but you get the idea. Oops, I don't know if you can see it. You can see it now, right? So basically, you have your exhibits. So your exhibits will be your evidence. So you would have each page of the exhibits would be what they call paginated. So you would number, so you'll see there's numbers. Oops. Can you see? At the bottom of the page, you number it. So basically, you put together a bundle, and the bundle basically looks like this. This is a court bundle. You get buy yourself a lever arch folder in Ryman's. I mean, this is an old one, but you know, as you go on, you find some better places that do really nice bundles. My bundles are much nicer than this one now, but this is just an old one to show you, and it basically gives you an idea. But this says first bundle on behalf of the claimant, CS1. Okay, so that's what you put on the cover of your bundle, and all your documents will go in. So once you put all your documents in, you do a contents page, and you would itemize each of the documents from page, just like you were reading a book. So page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4. So that's why you have at the bottom corner each page that each document is on. So you're going to start from 1, and you're going to count all the documents and number them from 1 all the way through. You start with your claim form, usually, and then you go all the documents. So every document that you get from the court, you put it in, and you do it in, you should really do it in chronological order, so in sequence of events, you know, with dated order. But you put at the bottom of the page, you just number the page. So you'd have your exhibit, so you have your witness statement, and next to your witness statement, attached to it, next to it, you'd have your exhibits. So all your exhibits will go under, behind this page. So for instance, when you're talking to the judge, you say, if we turn to page 38 of my exhibits marked as CS1, and we go to page 3, you will see the document, or you will see evidence that blah, 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 whatever the issue is. It could be a photograph, it could be an email, it could be anything that it can be put in document form that you can put into your bundle. So then basically when you want to refer the court, when you want to, so that the other party has got a copy of your bundle, then you have the judge has a copy of your bundle, then you have your bundle. And really they should give you a copy of what, if they're going to defend the claim, they should produce a bundle and give you the evidence of what they're challenging. Because basically they've got 3 options. When you issue a claim against someone, they've got 3 options. The first option is they admit that they've done it and they settle the claim. They can counterclaim, and also they can defend the claim and say, no, this is lies. And usually they'll not respond, and if they realize that you're going to take them all the way to task like I do, then they're going to try to pretend that they did respond, even though it's out of time. And then so you're going to get into a whole drama in relation to that one. And that's a whole new video. So let's just assume that they have responded to the claim and they say they're going to defend the claim. They're going to put all the evidence, which they have to submit to the court, and they should also submit the evidence to you. So basically, usually their evidence is going to be full up of lies. Now, the reason why I really do advocate caution when you're coming online and you're talking about your case, when you're dealing with liars, they listen to what you're saying and they think, oh, he's got that. So they'll fix their lies around it. So let's say you've got a document that says, oh, he came on this day and that day. They'll create a document to make that document look like, they'll fix it up in some way to say, yeah, I was there, but I was really somewhere else. For instance, that's just to give you an example of what they do. So one of the key things that you have to do is always keep a trump card. Always keep some cards close to your chest. You don't let them know exactly what you're doing, okay? That's so important. You don't put all your onions in at once. You give them enough for the court to see that what you're dealing with has merit, okay? So that they can't, because what the other side always do, they always go to strike it out. They always go to strike out your case. That's rule number 1. They always want to strike out your case, particularly when they're guilty. Now, obviously, some people will have fixers in the court so that when they strike it out, they'll get a judge who is corrupt, who's part of their little network, who will just pretend that he hasn't seen any of the evidence and say your case has got no merit and just throw it out. Okay, then in that case you'd have to go to the Court of Appeal and appeal that judge's decision. You'd go to a judge that is higher than him. So let's say if you was dealing with a district judge in the county court, you go to a circuit judge who's also in the county court. If you were dealing with a circuit judge, then you have to go to a high court judge in the high court, and he would overlook what that judge did under Part 52 of the appeals, CPR appeals. So you bring all your appeals under Part 52 of the Civil Procedural Rules, okay? So let's say you go to the High Court and the judge messes you about, then you'd have to go to the Court of Appeal and you take it to the Lords, the Law Lords, which are higher than all the lower courts. So then they'll rule over. They'll look at all the decisions that were made, and they'll look whether or not that judge's decision was correct or not correct. Okay. Now, in all of those situations, you always need, I would say, it's important to let people, if you're going to bring a claim against somebody, a case against somebody, and you're justified and you've got your evidence, and we'll talk about evidence in a minute, one of the things you're going to do is make sure you've got physical backup. It's called equal parity of arms. So if you're suing a corrupt corporation, or a corrupt institution or several corrupt institutions like I did. If there is more of them than there is of you, not only is it not an equal footing economically or even physically, it's also you have lack of parity of arms. That can go against you because most of the people that will be suing will have lawyers. All the corporations and institutions, they have in-house lawyers. So they deal with the courts every day. Let me just drink some water. Okay. So they deal with the courts every day. So they have in-house fixers that will automatically, mess things up for them. They'll remove evidence, they'll remove your bundles, they'll not give your bundles to the judge, or they'll do deals with the judges behind your back. So you've got to make sure that you go in the courts with backup. Yeah, you've got physical people so that when they come inside the courtroom and the judge sees this room is packed with people, it's a lot more difficult to crook somebody over when you're dealing with a room full of people. They still do it, but it's more difficult. So I would definitely say if you're going to put your case together, let people know. Don't discuss your case, the details of your case, but just let people know you're suing X and I need people to come forward to support me in court. We need more people to support us in court when we're doing these cases, because all of the cases that we're doing against these corrupt institutions, they help everybody. They help in the long run, they help everybody. So it's really important that you support people when they go to court, because this is why we fall short. Not only do the media doesn't report on our cases so nobody knows about it, on top of it, when we go into these courtrooms on our own, even though we've got all the evidence in the world, you're going to get messed around. So it's really important that you put the word out and support people with cases. People that like myself, like Brian Harvey, and all the people out there who are targeted, who have been through the mill. It's important that you support, because in the long run, when one of these corrupt institutions gets found guilty, it has ramifications to us in the long run, all of us, and it means that they get stopped in their tracks from doing it to anybody else. So that's why it's really important that we support each other. Okay, so sometimes when you're doing your cases, you're going to need to issue what's called an application notice. So that's when you have to go before the judge. Let's say the other side is not playing ball in some way, or your evidence has gone missing, or anything. If you want to have an extension of time to put in your documents because the load is so much and you're finding it difficult to put it all together and you need a bit more time, you're going to need what is called an N244 form. It's an application notice. And these forms are for if you want an order, if you want the judge to make an order on your behalf, if you want the judge to give you an extension of time to do things. It covers a multitude of things, but in some instances you can have a hearing just between yourself and the judge when it's not relevant to them to be there, which would be an ex parte application. Say for instance, like me, I needed to get my courtroom transcripts. It wasn't necessary to bring the other side in about the transcripts. Transcripts are necessary when you go into the courts. So because I'm appealing the decision of one judge, I have to get everything, the audios, and the audios have to be transcribed. And basically, in order to do that, sometimes you have to make an application to the courts. So, for instance, basically, in that case, you would do an N244. It's called N2. You should see that on the side. I don't know if you can see it. Oops, let me go the other way. At the very top there, you will see it says N244. And that's an application notice. So those are very important things to have. I would make sure you've got loads of copies of them because you're always going to need them for one thing or another. And what else is on my list? Compiling evidence. Now that's a very important one. Evidence is king, evidence is queen, evidence is crucial. There's no point even starting a claim if you haven't got any proof. If you haven't got any evidence, it's a waste of time. Even if it happened, you know it's happened, they know it's happened, you need evidence in order for the court to be able to establish that it's happened. Okay, so we're talking evidence. Cut out again, and I'm just joining all the videos together. So basically, evidence. What constitutes evidence? Evidence can be a testimony from a witness who saw what happened, who was there when it happened, who knew it happened, who also have evidence. So they would do a statement like you've done a statement, and it would be in the same format, for instance, but in this state we would put the person's name instead of your name. You'd put the other person's name in there, and it would be their first statement or their second statement, as I said before. So let me just I'm just trying to think what else. So evidence, you would basically want to be able to prove everything that you're saying. So every allegation of every offence, you need to be able to prove what you're saying. If you're not going to be able to prove it, it's no point mentioning it. Okay, so you need to be able to prove everything that you're suing for under the different acts. So, for instance, under the Housing Act, somebody, your landlord did X, Y, and Z, then you have to prove that they did it with your evidence. Okay, and so that's an important thing. So if you've got residents that saw, people that live in your building or live in your neighborhood that saw it, get a recorder, ask them permission, record them, type up what they've said, go back to them and get them to sign it. Okay, that's how I do my witness statements. I go to the person that was the witness, and they will either do it, either I bring my machine with me and I'll just type out what they want to say, or I allow them to type it out and sign it and give it to me. But if people are not able to do that, then you can go with a recorder and you can actually record their testimony live, and then you transcribe what they've said in their words. It has to be their words, not yours. And then afterwards you go back to them, you get them to check it over, and they can change anything they want to change, and then basically they sign it. Okay. And obviously photographs can be used as evidence. You can use videos as evidence. You can use, but usually they want what happened to you and not somebody else. You can, obviously, if it's a situation where this corporation is very well documented that they're doing the same things to lots of people, then you can use that as secondary evidence. But you want prima facie evidence. It's called prima facie evidence. First facts. You want the facts and the proof of what happened to you. Specifically to you, not to this happened to someone else, and because it happened to someone else it's similar to what is happening to you. You can do, but not really. You should really stick on what is happening to you. Now obviously if it's an unusual situation whereby the courts is not very well known and there's no legal precedence for those cases to be known, so let's say for instance with directed energy weapons, sometimes you can put photographs of what's happened to you, and then obviously you can show that this is a common thing if it's something that's not that well documented as far as the courts are concerned, because we know directed energy weapons and the targeting using that kind of technology is very well known. It's out there, everybody knows that it's happening, but obviously people bringing cases against those things are few and far between. So you use that evidence in the instance to show that it's similar to what has happened to you, and so you would show photographic proof if you've got scans from doctors, brain scans of chips or whatever has happened to you. You basically would include that. Now, obviously, when you're dealing with medical issues, doctors' evidence is very important as well. And another note is when you sue corrupt corporations, they will steal your medical records as well, so that they can try to say that you're a nutter or whatever. So you have to bear in mind that these are the kind of shenanigans that are going to go down. Your medical records could go missing all of a sudden, and so make sure you have a trustworthy doctor that's going to be on your side and that will corroborate what you're saying has happened to you, and that can provide medical proof that that has happened to you. Okay, especially when you're going for certain types of damages, and we'll talk about damages as well, the different types of damages that you can claim for. But yeah, so basically when we're dealing with evidence, we need prima facie evidence to show what has happened specifically to you. Okay, what is your case? Okay, so you also need witnesses. The more witnesses, the merrier. Witnesses are always going to be important in a case. So if you can compile witness statements, I would definitely recommend that you do that. The other thing is, if you're going to be recording people, you have to ask people's permission to record them, because in law they can throw out that type of evidence if you didn't actually give the person knowledge that they were being taped or filmed or recorded. But in instances where crimes are concerned or your safety is at risk, it could be deemed permissible in court for you having to record someone because your life was threatened in some way, or your life was in danger. So that changes the dynamic slightly. Can't tell you what law it is, but there is a law that will protect in certain instances. In the same way, you know, police can get warrants without, they can come and stop a crime without doing certain things, going through the usual procedures if there is a dangerous situation taking place and they have to act fast. In the same way, you can use certain types of evidence like recordings and videos, etc. But really and truly, you usually should, if you're going to be recording anybody, you should actually let that person, I'm recording you, and let that person know they're being recorded, so that you can use it in court, because you've got their permission to record, because it comes under data protection. And okay, so what else? There was another thing I wanted to talk about, damages. Now, there's different types of damages. I think when you go to county court, you have special damages. You can actually do, you can actually also do aggravated damages and punitive damages, or is it aggravated? Or you can do punitive damages, so punish. So you're going to ask the court for higher sum of money to punish the person in the pocket, because what they've done is so wicked and extreme that it warrants them being punished monetarily. So that's punitive damages. So you can also do exemplary damages. So those are damages where there's been abuse of due process of the courts, and it's basically to make an example of the person who's been abusing the whole judicial system in order to get away with doing the crimes that they're doing. So that's when you can claim for exemplary damages under certain grounds that you're claiming for those damages, because that person has abused the process of the courts in one way or another. Again, CPR comes into that as well. Say, for instance, you've issued your claim against someone And in their statement, they're just told pure lies. It's just pure lies. So again, you can use CPR. I think it's part 3.4 for a false statement of defense. So that's different from an affidavit, but it can be used if you understand how to use CPR, civil procedural rules. You can actually use one of those rules in order to bat out their corrupt statement, their deceitful statement. Now, under CPR rules, it's basically what it is. It's like a game of chess. You move a piece, they will move a piece. But your objective is to checkmate them so that they can't move any more pieces. So they're forced to be able to admit liability and settle the claim and pay for what they owe you, okay? For whatever damage or offense that they've done to you. That's basically what you want to put them in that position. So when we're looking at civil procedural rules, all of those rules are different moves that you're going to do. So they do a move, you do a move. You got to counter check them. You got to counter check them with their moves at every step of the way. Now, obviously, if you've shown them your evidence, and one of the things that they do, you'll get these corrupt lawyers. You'll go to these lawyers and they'll say, oh, let me see your evidence. But really, they're using the evidence that you've given them in order to make a deal with the opponent, your opponent, to so that they show them your hand. They show them what you're coming with. So always keep certain types of evidence back until really at the last moment, and then you introduce it, because they're going to corrupt a lie with a lie with a lie with a lie with a lie. That's how they deal with cases. So the best thing to do is to put enough evidence to show what you're doing, give them the opportunity to admit what they've done and show them that you're serious. And if they're still not playing the game, keep some of your evidence back until the last moment, and then because obviously if you keep some of your evidence back and they don't know what your evidence is, they're not expecting that move. You know, this is why they hack people when people have got cases. They surveillance you. They'll pay people to go through your bins, your rubbish bins, in case you've got paperwork that you've thrown in the bin. You know, they'll do all kinds of skullduggery when you go to court. So that's something you also have to bear in mind. You also have to be very aware of how corrupt people play the game. It's always going to be fraudulent. It's always going to be twisted. And so you've got to go into the judicial system with that in mind, okay? And then you've got to make sure that everything that you do can be proven. So when you talk to these people, email them so that there's emails, records. Always keep records of what you're doing so that, you know, there is a clear paper trail of what the court, the events have been in the course of you taking proceedings. Because what they're going to say, if you do your case yourself, they're going to try to make you look incompetent in some way, that you haven't done things wrong by the books. They're going to throw everything at you because they know they've got nothing. They're going to invent things to throw things at you to make sure that the judge will say, oh, well, you know, they haven't complied to this rule and they haven't complied to that rule, and throw you out that way. So you always have to bear that in mind as well. So what was the last thing? Other damages. So you have special damages when it's smaller claims. You can also have punitive and exemplary damages. But when you have bigger cases, you can have actual damages. So that's actual. So basically, it's losses, it's injuries, losses, and damages. And there are a whole series of damages that you can claim for that are all different. So, an example, you have pecuniary losses, which is basically if you're a parent and you have to spend money to look after your family or whatever, and you've spent that money having to do your case or whatever, so you've got losses to your household. So that's the pecuniary side. You've got particular damages, so that's particularizing, itemizing all the things that have been damaged. You've got actual damages, You've got loss of chance. For instance, in an intellectual property case, like me, I lost the chance to be able to launch myself in the mainstream, and people know me for my work. So that's another type of damages. Aggravated damages, disgorgement damages, so many damages. But anyway, this is going to cut out, so I'm going to leave it there for today. I hope this has been beneficial. Love to everybody. We want to build warriors. Keep hashtagging them and keep fighting for justice, okay? Okay, there was just one other thing I completely forgot to mention, but it's also really relevant, very important, is legal precedents. So those are cases that have already been before the courts that might be similar to your own case that has already been won. And so basically, in those instances, you can cite a case that has already been won as a case authority, and you bring them in when you're going to the hearing. You will look up cases. There's a site which is called barley.org, I think it is, and it lists all the cases, or it should do, but it doesn't always, because there's cases where I've won and it's not in there. But basically, you go to that site. I think it's Barley, BALII, I think, .org, something like that. I can't remember it properly, I'm sorry, but just Google it and it should come up, or internet search it rather than Google. Go to other search engines. Try to stop using Google as much as possible if you can. There are so many brilliant sites out there. We always mention Google, but there are so many other search engines, so use some of the other ones as well. But yeah, if you go onto that site, you can look up cases. So say, for instance, your case is a housing case. You can put in housing case, and then you'll find all the cases that were similar to yours. It's a lot to comb through, but you can actually cite this other case whereby the court ruled in that person's favor. So you would argue in your skeleton argument. And again, a skeleton argument, you can actually get the forms online, which makes it easy. But actually, it's set out exactly like this, but it says skeleton argument, and you put your name in there. And basically, so skeleton argument of the claimant, and basically, before you go into court, you should really give it to the other side a few days before you go into court to see what you're arguing, what your case is going to be about. And that's where you would put in your CPR rules that you're arguing. So you would argue under CPR rule 3.4, the defendant put in a false statement, blah, 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 blah. Under CPR rule 1, that this court has a duty to hear my evidence, blah, 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 blah. You get the idea. So you use all the different, so you argue your case, in terms of the law, what the law says your rights are. So under the Human Rights Act, you've got the right to a fair trial, which is under human rights. That's presuming that you're being prevented from having a fair trial. So then you would cite Article number 6. So in the case where you were arguing for your safety, you could argue under Human Rights Act 1998, Article 8, which gives us the right to safety, the protection of property, etc., etc. And so safety, security, it also covers liberty as well. So that covers all things like being stalked and what have you. You can put those in under Article 8. And there's lots of information which you can print out and you include it. So you do one bundle which has all your precedents attached to your skeleton argument. So you put your skeleton argument, and all the, you know, what's happened to you and under what law it was wrong, under what law it was an offence, under what act it was an offence, whether it be the Human Rights Act or the Thefts Act or whatever, and also under CPR rules. So you'd cite the CPR rule, which stresses what that person has done in the courts is wrong. So CPR rules governs what is the navigation of the court system. The Acts deals with what happened outside of the court system. So the offences, whether it be trespass or whatever the offence may be outside of the courts. So there are offences that take place in the courts, and there are rules that govern how you bring your case, put your case together within the court system. So that's what CPR covers. And basically that is a chess game. So basically they're gonna throw every CPR rule at you to basically get rid of your case. And under law, to do that is absolutely, it's a crime. You can actually be in contempt of court. You can actually get them under certain CPR rules for doing that. But as I said, make sure you have backup in the courtroom, because if you go in there on your own and you say all these things, they're not even going to listen to you, because usually it's their mate, and they're not going to let you know it's their mate, but you don't know what goes on behind closed doors. And trust me, there's stuff going on behind closed doors, you know. But as I said, there are good judges as well. So I don't want everybody to think every single judge is corrupt. There are some good judges still, even though majority of them are corrupt. I think they're trying to clean up the court system, but it's far from clean. It's far from clean right now, because we're still dealing with the same bullshit and shenanigans. But the way it's going to get cleaned up is by more people using the system and actually, you know, I mean, personally, I think the whole system needs to be, the whole overhaul for the whole entire system. Wherever there are criminals, they should be rooted out of every department, because that's how we're going to clean this mess up. But in order to do it, we need empowered people. We need empowered people who are using the law. And if I have my way, every single child in the school system will be taught law. They would be taught the law so that they know the law themselves. Every single time, it will be mandatory. It should be mandatory for every single human being to know their rights while they're living on this planet. Because they've got a system whereby they've got corrupt lawyers. You go to their corrupt lawyers, they mess you around, they'll take your money to steal your assets and mess you around, and then you don't get justice that way. You've got mega crimes that are happening, all these tragedies that are happening, and there's no justice, and you've got people walking around for years, walking up and down the streets saying justice for Grenfell, justice for Hillsborough, justice for this and justice for that. We've got to take justice in our own hands. And that is the reason why I'm making this video, because I want everybody to become empowered so that we don't go to them for justice. We go to them to deliver justice ourselves. Okay? And that's what we need to get to. We need the hashtag campaigns being blasted out everywhere. No more evil, no more abuse, jail the criminals, jail 7 Gate crime ring. We want hashtags being blasted. Blast it to the media. Blast them, let them know, we know that you're doing false flags. We know about the 7 Gate crime ring. Let them know that you're not having it anymore. That you're not having it anymore. You know that there are criminals in there and you're not having it. So when you're blasting out your hashtags, direct it to some of these corrupt institutions. You know, you've got BBC, you say, we want you out. That's a hashtag. Get out. They've got a movie called Get Out, which is all based on the whole organ harvesting industry that they've got going on to black people. That movie was real. Okay? If you cast your mind back to the Olympics in 2016, where Rupert Murdoch and Helen Alexander and all the criminals that are running the mafia crime ring within mainstream media, who govern the whole thing, the deep state, If you look at the way the whole Olympics in Rio was set up, the whole ceremony was based on slavery. They had black people running while they had capturers, people capturing them. This was funded by the same crime ring. It was funded by Murdoch and Helen Alexander and all the people within the deep state crime rings, from Russells and all of these different corrupt mainstream organizations. Right now, the whole of mainstream is corrupt, okay? If you look at how many fires they've got going on, they even put their statue of the Baphomet. They've got their statue of the Baphomet to show you we've come now. This is, as far as they're concerned, this is their time now. They're burning the place down all over. All different countries are being burnt down. Sweden had 8 cities burnt down last week. You know, this is the same going on all over the place. And people are still watching, you know, EastEnders and all these CSI and all these different mainstream TV shows. Stop watching their TV shows and start doing hashtags. Hashtag stop your evil. No more evil. This is where we need to get to. And we need people, instead of talking about your targeting situation, start issuing proceedings. Yourself, get a few friends to back you up, or go on here and let people know, I want to bring a case. Will some people back me up? Make an appeal to other targeted people to support you while you put your case together. It's not rocket science. They've made people feel like this is out of our jurisdiction and it's out of our hands and we don't have the capacity to do it. But we do have the capacity. I'm a living example. Okay, if I can sue 10 corporations and win, every single one of you can do it. Okay, and the more people that do it, the more they're going to stop messing with our lives. Okay, too much of people complaining about what's going on, and there's not enough coming back from us to address the abuse. So we need hashtags, and we need people coming forward with their own lawsuits and people saying this is what happened to me, giving your testimonies and actually issuing proceedings against people. Okay, this is how we shut it down. Okay, we don't want their system. Hashtag we don't want your system. Okay, your system is null and void. We don't want it anymore. We don't want the abuse. We don't want the evil. We don't want the murders. We don't want the domestic terror. We don't want any of it. Okay, we want to live in a place where we can thrive. We can live with our friends and our family and the people that we love and love. That's what we want. We want to live in love. I want to live in love. I want to live in truth, love, where there's freedom and justice. Okay? You ain't gonna get justice from them. If you think going up and down the street saying justice for Grenfell is gonna get you justice, it's not gonna get you no justice. What's gonna get you justice is class actions, where you all band together, you forget your differences, and you join together. What's gonna get you, if you're a targeted individual, if there's a group of you that you know and you trust, because trust is a big thing right now. You know, it's very hard to trust people out there. That's why we have to make the new currency love, coming from the heart, talking to people with love and respect and having respect for your fellow human beings. You know, when we hear about these stories of all these poor people being trafficked and children being trafficked, we got to be able to do something about it. To be coming on and saying this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, and waiting for Trump and waiting for Corbyn and waiting for this one and that one and what's the other one in Russia, Putin, and all of them to rally to our aid. We could wait forever. This is where we stand up and be counted. This is our time to rise up, rise up. All the people of God, rise up. All the people of love, rise up. All the real people of truth, rise up. This is where we are right now, okay? So I'm going to leave you there for today. There's going to be more videos coming at you. Hopefully you'll find them useful. Please share them. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to Solutionaries Media Network. Let's keep it about solutions. Let's keep it the focus on what we're going to do about it. If you have comments on what you think we should be doing, great suggestions, please leave a comment about it. If not, join on board the freedom train. The freedom train is blasting them with hashtags. Bombardment. Pow, 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 pow. Every day. Blast out a hashtag. Make a meme. Blast it to them. Let them know that we ain't having it no more. That's where you got to get to. Get to your power. It's about the internalization of power. The whole paradigm of externalizing power and giving your power to people that don't know you, don't care about you, and kill you to claim your money is over. Okay? This is where we are, and this is where we're going to take things under our control. Love you all. Love to you all. Be kind to one another. Yeah? Freedom, justice, and power to the people.